Welcome to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy, powered by the Retirement Income Store and brought to you by Agemy Financial Strategies in Guilford, Connecticut and Denver, Colorado.
AAA, let me tell you the story about Jimmy John.
Okay.
Jimmy John, he's a pretty good investor, and things have gone his way. Back in 2018, he bought Kathy Wood's ARK Invest Fund, and he made a lot of money. Jimmy John is he's 73 years old. So he has to come across these things called requirement and distributions. Mm-hmm. And in 2021, when he had to take his first one, it went pretty well. His account was up huge. 21 ended, and he had $1 million in his IRA.
Okay.
He's done pretty good for himself. He's the kind of guy who we all know, we all love, right? Always knows the best stock, able to pick it, buy it. And he has patience like Job. If it goes down, he will hold on to it until it comes back.
Okay.
When his RMD was calculated, it was calculated $1 million account. Unfortunately for Jimmy John, today his ARK fund is down 60% year to date.
Ouch.
His portfolio is now worth $400,000.
Wow.
And he has to take about $43,000 out of the account for RMDs. Unfortunately for Jimmy John, he didn't know what he didn't know, and he didn't know that he was going to have to take this big RMD, and he can't hold his investment till it comes back. I'm Daniel Agemy.
I'm Andrew Agemy, and you're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy, because people don't know what people don't know. Jimmy John didn't know what he didn't know, and that's the problem of this whole thing. And that today's topic is recession-proof your RMDs. Jimmy John didn't recession-proof his RMD because he invested in the market. He did very well for himself, but when it came time to take out the RMD, it was worth less and had to end up taking out 10%. And what's the problem with that, Daniel?
Well, now if his fund goes back to where it was, he's not going to get back to where he was. He'll never have his $1 million again.
Right.
The fund will have to go far beyond where it is. And he's going to have another RMD next year. So it's got to go up above where he was. It's negative compounding.
Yeah. A lot of mistakes that people make, right? I mean, if he had taken it earlier in the year at 2022, that would have been better than taking it later in the year. But sometimes people wait till later in the year, hoping the market's going to turn around, and it just becomes worse for them, right? And then next year, got to take another one and selling more shares. And that's not recession-proofing his RMD, is it?
No, and obviously this is a fictitious story. But we wanted to exaggerate the point of recession-proofing your RMD. You could do this slowly over time,
right? Taking
your RMD by having your money in a fixed 3% account,
right?
Or you could do it by having assets that come down 60% in value. The numbers are real, right? That fund is down 60%. The NASDAQ, whatever you have your funds in, you need to have a plan. So what are requirement distributions? Because some people are like, what are these guys talking about?
Right.
What is a requirement and distribution?
Well, when you're 72 years old, you have to take out a minimum amount out of your IRA, 401ks, 457s, anything that you have not paid tax on while you were saving for retirement. At 72, it's now time. The government requires you to start taking that. It's time to pay the piper. They want their tax money. They've allowed you to put this money in those accounts without paying tax. Now they want the tax on that money. And you can wait from the first year. You could push it off into the year you turn 73, take it in the first 3 months of the year you turn 73, but then you have to take two that year. which depending on what your taxes are, that might put you in a bad tax bracket from that standpoint. Especially in the case of Jimmy John, he has to take, $40,000 for his RMD. And if he took it in 2 years and had a 40,000 for both years, that's 80,000 just from his RMD, not counting his Social Security and other monies. And
that would have been really bad.
Right?
If he had to take $80,000 out of his now $400,000 account.
Right. Now that wouldn't be the case, if it went down to 400. But nevertheless, point is, if he had to take two, that can be disastrous. And the thing that people don't understand, Daniel, is what Siegel's paradox, right? From Jeremy Siegel, Wharton School of Business. And, if the market drops or your account value drops 50%, or in his case, it drops 60%, in order to just get it back to even, it's got to go up like 125% or something like that, just to break even. And that's the likelihood of that happening anytime soon is not very good. But,
okay, so the government is very generous and they allow us to take money from our paychecks, put it into things called 401ks. You put, let's say, $20,000 a year, $24,000 a year out of your paycheck into your 401k, and $24,000 comes off your taxes.
Right.
So you're happy. You didn't pay taxes on that money. You're accumulating your wealth. Instead of paying taxes on it, putting it into an account after tax.
Right.
You'd have less money to put because they would have took the taxes out, right? So you wouldn't have $24,000. You might only have 20. So that $4,000 compounding over 20, 30, 40 years is huge.
Right.
But now, as you said, it's time to pay the piper. And the government says, you've never paid tax on this money in this account. You need to start taking money out so that you can pay tax on it.
Right.
So Jimmy John says, well, Andrew, I've got a better idea. Markets always come back. I'm just going to move $40,000 of my fund from my IRA into a Roth IRA. And now when Kathy Wood's ARC fund comes back, goes up to 125%, I'll have all my $1 million still.
Okay. Problem is, you can't do that. You can't take your RMD and convert your RMD. You can take other monies and convert, but you can't convert your RMD. You're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy, because people don't know what people don't know. Today's topic is recession-proof your RMDs, your required minimum distributions. And we have a paper we'd like to put in your hand to help educate you so you can make smart decisions, which is called Understanding RMDs, Understanding Required Minimum Distributions. We'd love to put this, to give this to you for free. Call us at 800-725-7616. Ask for it by name, Understanding RMDs, or you can check in with us on our website, the two words agemy.com. Agemy, the two words agemy, spell our last name of agemy.com, and you can ask for it there. So, Daniel, that's a great concept to convert IRA money to Roth IRA. That will help stay up with inflation and do some different things. But like I said, you can't convert your required minimum distribution. You can convert IRA money. You can use the RMD to pay the taxes on the conversion, but you can't convert the RMD itself. So that's a problem. So that, Jimmy John, he's thinking, right? Like you said, he's somebody that we all know and love, right? We all know people like Jimmy John. But that's the thing that we're trying to educate people on, is that even though Jimmy John has done this all these years prior to being 72 years old, 73 years old, it's worked well. His philosophies work well. But sometimes in life, you have to change. You have to do things differently than you've done before. And that's the point. That's how, first of all, the first point of recession-proofing your RMD is thinking differently, right? Thinking differently. You have to invest differently. You have to think differently to invest differently, because it's a different time. It's a different situation than you've ever faced before.
So somebody that we work with, somebody very close to both of us, likes to say, it's like putting toothpaste back into the container, right? It comes out really good, but it doesn't go back in.
Right.
And so Jimmy John has been investing for a long time, and he understands the way he likes to invest. He's a risky guy. He loves taking on that risk. But the difficulty is that once you are in retirement, close to retirement, you're at RMD age, things change and things kind of work backwards.
Yeah.
Where volatility for most people goes from being your friend to being your enemy.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're saving money, volatility can really help you out.
Mm-hmm.
The Wall Street model of investing, the typical way investment advisors help their clients get set up for a retirement portfolio, it doesn't generate enough income to cover those required minimum distributions, which turns into taking toothpaste out of a container and then trying to stuff it back in. It doesn't work very well.
Right.
Jimmy John decides he's just not going to take the required minimum distribution because if he waits, it doesn't take that $40,000 out.
Yeah.
What is the IRS going to do to him?
Like 50% penalty. That's the problem with that, with not taking what you're supposed to take when you take it. It's the largest penalty the IRS has, right? 50%. So if his RMD is $40,000, he's got to pay the tax on his $40,000, and then he's got to pay a 50% penalty on the $40,000. So depending what tax bracket he's in, if he's only in the 20% tax bracket federally, he's paying what, $8,000 in taxes and a 50% penalty on that. So now he's paying $20,000 a penalty plus taxes. So $28,000 is going to the government, and of the $40,000, so he gets to keep 12. Not a good place to be.
No, especially when your account's already down $600,000.
Right. Exactly. So that's why it's important for us to be able to look at and recession-proof RMD. So how do you do that? Well, we're going to tell you more about that when we come back from break. So you want to be able to hang on and come back to see us. We're going to go to a break. Before we do, you're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy. Today's topic is recession-proof your RMDs. We're going to come back and talk to you about that. But in the meantime, we'd like to give you this book without obligation, free of charge, Common Sense Income Strategies by our friend Michael Easton. Now, Common Sense Income Strategies is pertinent to what we're going to be talking about. So you can have this for the next 5 callers at 800-725-7616. 800-725-7616. Call now for your free copy. We'll be right back after this.
History tells us the market goes up and the market goes down. What would you do if you lost half of your retirement savings? It's time to make the shift to steady, reliable retirement income. And where do you go? The Retirement Income Store. Log on to agemy.com for your free retirement review. That's AGEMY.com. The Retirement Income Store, where retirees go for income.
Welcome back to Financial Strategies with Andrew Agemy in Connecticut and Daniel Agemy in Colorado.
Daniel, let me tell you about Sheila. She heard about Jimmy John and what Jimmy John was doing with being crazy about his money, right? And being aggressive with his money. And she said, no, that's not for me. I'm more concerned about the return of my principal rather than return on my principal. So she invested the money in a 3% account. Her 401k had the 3% account available to her. And, the good news about 3% is she's getting 3%. The bad news is she's getting 3%, right? So only 3%, right? So the problem is, that's not so bad until required minimum distributions come for Sheila, because at 72, she's got $1 million in her 403b, but she's got to take $40,000 out. But she's only making $30,000 a year with the 3%. So she's digging into principal. So Jimmy John dug into principal because the market dug in his principal and stole that from him. And then when he had to take it out of his $40,000, he did that. But now Sheila is digging into her principal. I'm Andrew Agemy.
And I'm Daniel Agemy, and you're listening to Financial Strategies. Today we're talking about recession-proof your RMD. And that should have worked. I mean, right? At least she's not down $600,000.
Well, yeah, you're right. But, Sheila, when you reach 72 years old, the statistics say you could very well live well into your 90s, if not 100 years old at that standpoint. And, you take a little bit of principal now, and it just continues to compound to where she could run out of money, even with $1 million before she runs out of life, because the required minimum distribution starts off at just under 4% when you're 72 years old, but it increases and increases. So by the time you're 80, it's somewhere between 5 or 6%. And by the time you're 90, it's somewhere up in the 9% range. And it just keeps getting bigger from there, the percentage you have to take out. So, the people are often familiar with mortgages and how mortgages work. And when your first payment on a mortgage is a little bit of interest, a little bit of principal, a lot of interest. And then as time goes on, you get more principal. And somehow miraculously, at the end of that 30 years, you paid off that principal. But when you're digging into your principal from your IRA, it works just in the opposite. You run out of money quicker than what you want to. I mean, a lot of people's parents have taught them, don't live off the principal, live off the interest. And that's the way to recession-proof your RMD. How do you do that? But interest rates are only, we got some CDs 4 or 5% right now. The problem with that is they're short term, and we don't think that's going to last very long. And even if you could get a long-term one at that rate, you could live longer than that. So digging into principal is a problem.
Yeah, well, there's another problem. That problem is that inflation is 9%, 8%. Mm-hmm. And 3-4% might sound pretty decent, but unless that's for short-term purposes, that's like the money you're depending upon to live the rest of your life.
Right.
To support your lifestyle.
Yeah.
That's not going to cut it. Even if inflation doesn't stay this high, you got to be able to stay ahead of those RMDs, like you were saying.
Right.
I had a client ask me just the other day, almost that same scenario. So are we just going to keep taking these required minimum distributions until our account runs out of money? And they're doing more of a strategy where their assets are paying them. And so that would be very difficult to run out of money in that situation. But there's also another thing going on with them that maybe we'll get into, where they may not have a required minimum distribution, not because they ran out of money by taking it out, but because they ran out of IRA money by converting it into Roth IRAs over time, so that they don't have to worry about that. So it's, for them, it was a very good question. Is that what's going to happen? Or are these numbers just going to keep going up and up and up until we just have no more money in our IRA? But this is why we're having this show, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't start planning for this when you are 72 years old, like Jimmy John, right?
Right.
You got to think of it ahead.
That's
because
right.
he could have started doing stuff before that. Then when he bought Kathy Wood's ARC fund and it made all that money, it would have been tax free. And then hopefully he would have sold it. But that's another story.
Yeah, exactly. You have to think about it ahead of time. A good chess player thinks 7 moves ahead. And that's where, if you're not being able to think 7 moves ahead because you don't even know what you don't know and don't know what's coming down the road, well, then you need to get with somebody that has experience and retires every day virtually, through their clients. And so, that would be able to help you to be able to have 7 moves ahead and be able to know what these things are. And, ideally, I like to help people in their 50s and their 60s prepare for their RMDs, depending upon their situation. And we do that quite often, do some converting. And that is a way to recession-proof your money. But, another way to recession-proof your money, the best way to recession-proof your money is not live off the principal. Like I said, live off the dividends and interest. And But before you could do that, you need to understand your RMDs, what they are, how they work, required minimum distributions. And we'd like to give you a paper that would be able to help you understand. It's just called simply Understanding RMDs. And you can have that by calling 800-725-7616. Have it for free. It's only about 3-4 pages, something like that. Easy read that will educate you on some of the basics of required minimum distributions and ways to be able to do it and take them in a way that will be able to help you to not outlive your money. So we'd love to be able to put this in your hand. Call us 800-725-7616 or check us out on the web at agemy.com, agemy.com. Daniel, you're spending a lot of time helping people to build up the dividend and interest that they have. And that's people don't understand what income is a lot of times, right? And that's why I say use dividends and interest. And you're spending a lot of time helping people to build these up. And what are people typically getting? Tell the audience what typically people are typically getting in regard to dividends and income. I mean, they may not say, they don't. For those that don't have a concept of what we're talking about.
Well, I guess there's good news and bad news. The good news is that if you're not invested for dividends and income, dividends and interest, dividends and income are paying a lot better than they were. So there's a possibility you could convert, even though your account's down, and still get close to the same amount of income that you could have got with your portfolio. Now, Jimmy John, he's not going to be able to. He lost too much money. But if you're down 30%,
yeah.
Your portfolio is down 30%, you could probably get close to the same amount of income.
Yeah.
This is your assets paying you. You can do whatever you want with that money. You can use it to cover your RMD. Yeah. You can use it to support your lifestyle, or you can reinvest. We talk a lot. We talk a lot about how when you're young, you're saving money and volatility becomes your friend. It's like buying a pair of shoes. If it's on sale, are you going to say, oh, no, I can't buy it. It's 50% off.
No.
You're probably going to buy 2 pairs, right?
Right.
Because you already had it in your mind. You were going to spend that money.
Right.
Maybe you'll buy that and you'll buy an ice cream cone. I don't know what you're going to do. You have the choice. That's the point, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how this stuff works. When it comes down, when you're young and you're saving, you get it 50% off. But if you're not saving, what do? You just cross your fingers and hope that it comes back. But there's another strategy, and that's what we're talking about. If your assets are paying you, okay, you're Jimmy John, and he sold his accounts when it was worth $1 million, and he said, I want to start producing income.
Yeah.
Right now, that thing could probably generate $75,000 to $80,000 of income. That's going to cover your RMD.
That's for sure, and then some.
That's going to cover your RMD, right?
Yeah.
So he could take, let's say it's 70. We'll go on the light side. We'll say 70. So he takes 40, covers his RMD. He has an extra $30,000.
Yeah.
Right? Is an extra $30,000. So he can say, I'm going to reinvest this into the ARC fund that's down 60%.
Right.
Because he's got an extra $30,000 that his assets paid him. Or he could say, I want to buy more things that are going to produce more income.
Right.
So next year he won't have the 70, he'll have 75.
Wow.
Right.
Nice. Yes.
And it compounds that way. So we're looking at when we're talking about income, we're looking at things that promise or guarantee. A bond is a guarantee, right? A corporate bond, the corporation guarantees they're going to pay you a certain amount of income.
Yep.
So let's say right now that's 7.5%. Okay, because we've seen some amazing deals in these kinds of things. So you buy a corporate bond. If rates turn around, if markets turn around, that corporate bond is going to go from under par to above par. Okay, so it's going to go from trading at a premium or a discount to a premium. Okay, so you're going to earn 7.5% each year.
Yep.
So with the $1 million, that's $75,000 a year.
Nice.
If things turn around, you still get the growth side because that will go from the discount to a premium. And so you won't have to wait till they buy that back from you to get your money back. It'll just go up. So your asset can go from, $80,000 to $100,000.
Right.
So you got your 20% when you were expecting 7.5. Now, why is this 7.5 number so special? Because the S&P 500 over the last 20 years has done about 7.5%. Now, this is before this crash we had. It's not 7.5 anymore. We're using a high number for the last 20 years.
Right.
Okay. That was at the beginning of the year before markets crashed. So you're getting equity-like returns without taking equity risks. I don't know how that doesn't make sense. Like that has to make sense to everyone to get more return with less risk. And it's certain return, right?
Right.
This corporation promised you, they guaranteed you that they're going to pay you that money compared to you're hoping that the markets continue to do what they did the last 20 years.
Yeah. More return, less risk.
Did that answer your question?
Nice. Nice. More return, less risk. Well, you're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy. And today's topic is recession-proofing your RMDs. And Daniel gave us a little bit of a direction about how that works, but we're going to be coming back and giving you more. But we also have this book that we'd like to give you for free, no obligation, Common Sense Income Strategies, which explains some of the strategies involved with how to be able to recession-proof your RMDs, be able to work from dividends and interest as opposed from just withdrawals from principal. Call us now at 800-725. Next 5 callers get this book for free. 800-725-7616. Call now.
I'm David Scranton, founder of the Retirement Income Store. If you're in or near retirement, are you certain you have the right retirement plan in place? Do you want to help ensure your nest egg will last you all throughout retirement? Take our retirement review quiz and find out in 5 minutes or less if you're doing everything you can to achieve a more successful retirement.
Visit us online at agemy.com. That's AGEMY.com. Welcome back to Financial Strategies with Andrew Agemy in Connecticut and Daniel Agemy in Colorado.
So Izzy heard about Jimmy John, and Izzy heard about Sheila, and Izzy heard on the radio that if you buy real estate, you get depreciation, and that can save you a lot of money in taxes. So Izzy is calling her CPA right now, and she's calling her CPA to ask her CPA why she owes $450,000 in taxes. And her CPA picks up and she says, I did this good thing. I cashed out my $1 million 401k so I don't have to take RMDs. And I bought real estate to offset the taxes. So why do I owe $450,000? I'm Daniel Agemy.
And I'm Andrew Agemy. And you're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy, because people don't know what people don't know. And we want to be able to help you make smart decisions. Today's topic is recession-proof your RMDs. Daniel, that is crazy. So she cashed out her $1 million 401k IRA. And so what's the rest of that story?
Well, it's not as crazy as you think. I've seen a lot of people do it.
Well, I understand that. But it's great, and why do people do it? Because people don't know what people don't know, right? And they they get a little bit of information that makes them dangerous, right? Just enough to make them dangerous, and where it's so difficult to get the right information, to get information that is that's the whole story, right? So she was missing part of the story, right?
Right. So she heard about what these other people did, and she thought she was going to do it a better way. She doesn't have an IRA anymore, so she doesn't have to take an RMD. She achieved that part. The difficulty is you take that much money out of an IRA, and pay about 50% in tax. If she didn't hold anything, that's why she owed the IRS $450,000.
Yeah.
It was because she didn't hold any taxes when she cashed out the 401k. She thought that buying real estate would provide enough depreciation to offset that. But depreciation, typically you can't take a huge lump like that for buying, a $500,000 or $1 million place, right? It's over time you get your depreciation, and it can be a good way of tax planning.
Yeah.
But she just went with, I get depreciation, and thought, if I buy a $1 million house, I take $1 million out of my IRA, wash. That's not how it works.
Right. Exactly. It's a little bit every year over time. And if she's taking her RMDs, it might be able to offset her RMDs, but it's not going to be able to offset the whole withdrawal from that aspect. And, but the recession proofing, all these people are missing out. They're getting a little bit of information and they're thinking this, and they're do-it-yourselfers. They're figuring this stuff out themselves because, maybe they want to save money, right? I don't want a professional to help me with this because I don't want to pay a professional. I can do it myself, right? Well, you're paying time or you're paying money. All these people are paying in money in one way or the other because they're either losing it, they're paying more in taxes and all these kinds of things. Whereas somebody that understands these things would be able to help them to make the road a little bit more smoother and take the stress out.
Right. We tell you about diversification a lot, right?
Right.
And some of each of these strategies might work.
Mm-hmm.
Depreciation might help you in some cases, right? Depending on what you have going on. Having an aggressive fund that you hold on to and don't sell when it's down might be a good strategy depending on how much money you have.
Right.
And having a fixed portion of money might be good for you. The problem is there's all different types of diversifications. And one type of diversification is diversifying between strategies, not just asset classes, right? Tell us about your philosophy on diversification of strategies.
So, basically there's three kinds of diversification overall. One of those diversifications is strategy. And one one strategy is the accumulation strategy where you're trying to build your assets and you're putting money away and you're trying to go for growth. But then the other strategy is a distribution strategy. And that's the key with required minimum distributions, is making sure that your money is set up for distribution, being able to take it out. Because there's two ways of taking money out. One is a withdrawal method, which a lot of people are used to. And that's typically what people think of, is just going to the bank and withdrawing money. Well, that's one aspect. But the other aspect is where you're able to get dividends and interest out, and you're not withdrawing money. You're receiving the interest or the dividends and not withdrawing from your principal, not withdrawing from your account. Really, you're taking the money that's coming in from the interest and dividends. And that's key to people that they don't understand. So people need to switch. And that's one of the things that people, the greatest mistake retirees make is not switching, not changing from a accumulation mindset and strategy into the distribution mindset at the proper time. And because of that, they can actually run out of money before they run out of life. And, when we're talking about that, the key, I don't know anybody that has on their bucket list. Some people say, well, I don't need the money anyway. Okay, yeah, but, I don't know anybody that has on their bucket list that they want to live their whole life and then go, run out of money, go to convalescent home and die, right? Most people want to stay in their own home. And in order to stay in your home for the rest of your life, you need money. And if you run out of money when you're 80 years old, 85 years old, but you lived to 90, 95, 100 years old, you're not going to be able to be in your home. Is that really the way you want to live your life? Well, you're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy. Today's topic is recession-proof your RMDs. And we have a paper that we'd love to give you to be able to help you with this. And it's are your allocations right for RMDs? This is going to be talking about how to recession proof. If you set up your allocations within your investments properly, you'll be okay to recession proof your RMDs. And it won't matter if the market drops or if inflation comes, because your RMDs will be on a trek, on a strategy, on a philosophy of being able to come no matter what happens. Very key. You can have this paper for free by calling 800-725-7616 or checking us out on the web at agemy.com, AGEMY.com. Ask for your copy. RMD allocations. All right? Listen to the Financial Strategy with Andrew and Daniel Agemy, because people don't know what people don't know. Today's topic, recession-proof your RMDs. So, Daniel, when we're talking about these two strategies and the withdrawal method, people tend to engineer income by withdrawing, and that's that works great if their money's in the investment, like Jimmy John earlier, and when it's going up, that's no problem withdrawing money. But the problem is the market goes three directions: up, down, and sideways. So if you're got your money in the market and you're planning on RMDs, that's the way to end up in Disasterville.
Yeah. And, the words we use mean a lot of things. And I would encourage everyone to start listening to the words that your advisor, or if you're advising yourself, the words you use. Because if people are using words like Jimmy John, well, all I have to do is wait until markets come back. That is egregious. That is ridiculous. That doesn't make any sense. Let's change the words around. I'm asking you to put your life on hold until the market gods decide it's time for markets to come back.
I don't want that.
I don't want that. I'm not going to go on vacation. I'm going to have to worry about money. I'm just not going to do anything. Not help my grandkids start a business. Not do any of this stuff because the market gods decided that they're going to be down.
Right.
And markets are down more than people think. Like, I'm not trying to beat up the markets being down,
right,
but they're down 40% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Again, if you're saving money, maybe that's helping you. But if you're in or close to retirement, you need your assets to pay you, because number one, it lowers volatility. Number two, it allows you to decide what you want to do with your earnings. You don't have to make the decision to sell. You get to decide if you want to spend that money or reinvest that money, right?
Right.
These are huge, huge, huge things that people don't think about. And then when we talk about how ridiculous buying the S&P right now would be, or buying stocks like the S&P, not picking particular ones that have upside potential based on fundamentals, not momentum,
right,
compared to investing in an income portfolio of, like, let's say, corporate bonds. I just can't fathom 7% return over 7.5% return over the last 20 years. How many 40% pullbacks was there? 3 or 4?
Yeah. 4 or 3. I'm sorry. 3 40%.
And a 35?
25.
In COVID? Okay. This one.
4.
Okay. So 4 30% pullbacks, 25% pullbacks.
Right.
3 40%. And you don't know when you're getting paid. Did you hold through all of those? Right? To earn that measly 7.5% return.
Yeah.
You had to hold it through that whole time. So I'm like, I don't understand why somebody would say that right now. Right?
Yeah.
Why somebody would say, well, we'll do that, because equities are still expensive, right? The market is still expensive. You've got two companies in there that don't make sense, their valuations, and they take up a huge percentage of the S&P. You have Tesla, which is a dark horse. It's a wild card. Okay. We've made a lot of money on Tesla, but right now it's a scary company. And we could do a whole show on why it's a scary company based on the valuation, based on what the owner's doing with all these different companies and pooling money from one company to the other. Sam Bankman-Fried just did something kind of like that and the whole company blew up. I'm not saying Tesla is going to blow up, but it's not something that you want to depend on for it to.
Yeah.
Right. And Apple, the other tech companies have all blown up, right?
Yeah.
Facebook's down 75% year to date.
Wow.
They've all blown up, but Apple's still there and it's got a ridiculous valuation. So if these kinds of things happen, where these come back down to kind of valuations that have made sense historically, or they just stay where they are until the metrics catch up, right? They don't have to go down.
Right.
You could see an S&P not do anything for 10 years.
Right.
You could see an S&P not do anything for 5 years. And that's where we're talking about the consistency of the returns. If it didn't do anything for 5 years, that means you're taking your RMD out of what?
Principal. That's not a good place.
Or you're taking your spending money out of your principal, right?
Selling more shares. Right. All right. Well, you're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy. Today's topic is recession-proofing your RMDs. Hope you're getting a lot out of this. Trust that you are. But we'd like to give you a little bit more information to be able to study on your own and grow. Called Common Sense Income Strategies by our friend Michael Easom. And this book is going to be able to help you understand how to recession-proof by using dividends and interest to be able to provide for your RMD. And the one, when you don't need dividends, when you don't need all your dividends and interest, you can reinvest it and grow your money the old fashioned way. So we'd love to put this book in your hand to the next 5 callers at 800-725-7616, 800-725-7616. For the next 5 callers, get your free copy. We'll be right back after this.
History tells us the market goes up and the market goes down. What would you do if you lost half of your retirement savings? It's time to make the shift to steady, reliable retirement income. And where do you go? The Retirement Income Store. Log on to agemy.com for your free retirement review. That's AGEMY.com. The Retirement Income Store, where retirees go for income.
Welcome back to Financial Strategies with Andrew Agemy in Connecticut and Daniel Agemy in Colorado.
So, Daniel, let me tell you about Henry. I met Henry at 65 when he was 65 years old, had $1 million in his 401k. He decided he wanted to change from an accumulation strategy and put it more into a distribution strategy, even though he doesn't need the money. He's got pension and Social Security enough to live on in retirement, but he knew that 72 was coming and RMDs were coming. So he decided to take and switch, as I said, from an accumulation to a distribution mindset. His $1 million started producing about $45,000 a year of dividends and interest. Today, Henry has $1.4 million. He's 72 years old, and his dividends and interest are producing about $80,000 a year from that $1.4 million. Now, his RMD on that is going to be in the vicinity of about $65,000 or so. So he's got more money than he needs to satisfy his RMD. Then he's taking that, and it's a beautiful thing. It's still compounding, even though he's taking dividends and interest. I'm Andrew Agemy.
And I'm Daniel Agemy, and you're listening to Financial Strategies. Today, we're talking about recession-proofing your RMD. And we've heard about a few individuals who have tried some interesting things to protect themselves and to help themselves with their RMD. But I think Henry is he's got the right idea in mind. Letting his assets pay him.
Right.
So that he can cover his RMDs no matter what's going on in markets. And allow him to have spending power on top of that, or reinvestment power.
Right. And, that's a phenomenal thing. In those 7 years, that he's done that. His money has grown a total of 40%, which is great, a great number from that angle, and it's still compounding. And that's the beauty of dividends and interest. The scenario of TR, the equation of TR equals I plus G. Total return would be the total return, the percentage that you're making on something. But typically what you make comes from interest and growth. So just real quick, the S&P 500, they say does, somewhere between, 7-8% on average over a long period of time. As far as total return goes, about 2 or 3% of that is income, and the other 4 or 5% of that is growth. And but the thing that brings the compounding to that is the dividends and income, and the dividends and interest there, which is significant. The I. If you want your retirement to be stress-free, invest for the I rather than the G. And that is very key to what we're talking about here. To recession-proof your RMDs, the key is the I, because the I comes in no matter what. G only happens when the market's going up. We have talked to a lot of people. I've talked to a person this week, right? One of our clients that wants to move their money from their 401k, their old 401k, that's not doing anything. It only is growing if the market goes up, and the market's not going up right now. It's going down. So they're not making any money. So they wanted to move it a lateral risk. So the same amount of risk, but increase their return by now they're going from a growth only standpoint to an I and G, an income and growth standpoint. So they're going to be getting those dividends, and the money is going to be coming in no matter what and compounding for them, buying more shares while the market's slow, so that when the market comes back, they're going to go back up. So it's a beautiful thing that we have available to people today. A lot of people, Daniel, as you well know, if they had $1 million in January and now maybe it's only $700,000 in January, maybe they would get $40,000, $45,000, $50,000 of income from that $1 million. Well, they can take their $700,000 today and still get the same $45,000 or so of income because of the changes that have gone on if they were to switch from the accumulation to the distribution mindset at this point in time. So it's a great opportunity that people have before them to prepare and recession-proof their RMDs.
Yeah, and that's something we really like investors, retirees to think about, right? Purpose versus performance.
Right.
And another one of our good friends likes to say maximum output, right?
Right.
Maximum output. You think about your fast car, you want the maximum output to the tires, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
The maximum output is not the G, it's not the growth.
Mm-hmm.
People are taught to think that way, right?
Right.
My portfolio go up, 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 up. But then when you come into a year like 2022, where the S&P is down about 20%, your G turned into an L, a loss.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have the I, the income, and the TR equals I plus G, then you still get the same amount of dividends. Right. Okay? But that's not exactly true. You get the same amount of dividends if you reinvest nothing. And none of the dividend producing assets you have come due and give you more cash to buy better paying things. And none of the companies increase the amount they're paying to you.
Right.
So everything stays the same, you have the same, right?
Right.
But typically that's not what's happening. We just talk about it that way because when we're talking about covering recession proofing your requirement and distribution, if you have, $40,000 of dividends and interest, you have a $40,000 RMD, then you're not really compounding. But that's not the goal. That's the bare minimum. When we're talking about a $40,000 RMD, you have to take out. Hopefully, you get $60,000 of dividends and interest, and you're reinvesting that 20.
Right.
And you were talking about the magic of compounding interest. The eighth wonder of the world, right?
Right. Right.
Which I guess we have to go to break, but an illustration of the actual compounding if you own the S&P without a dividend compared to if you do. And we could talk about that next.
Okay. Well, you're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy, but today's topic is recession proof your RMD. We have this show to educate people, to be able to help them know what they don't know, because a lot of the information that we're bringing to you here at Financial Strategies is not typically what the talking heads, so to speak, are talking about out there. We'd love to be able to educate you, and we got this paper for you called Are Your Allocations Right for RMD? So this is called RMD Allocations. All right. Ask for it by name. Call us 800-725-7616 or contact us on the web at our website, agemy.com, AGEMY.com. Ask for RMD allocations. You're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy. Daniel, okay, go ahead. Pick it up, man. We only got a few minutes left in our show.
How do you turn 770% into 1,400%?
770%?
Yeah. Growth.
Into 1,400%.
Yeah.
Okay.
You add in the dividends. So that's if you take the S&P from the early 90s, right?
Right.
770%.
Okay.
Without dividends. You tack in the dividends.
Yeah.
And it's 1,400%.
Wow.
Is that insane?
Double. Yeah.
It doesn't have it like, I mean, it's changed what the percentage, the dividend is, but that's because the dividends are paying in down markets, it's reinvesting. So when we're talking about buying a corporate bond at 6, 7.5, 8%, right? We're not talking about junk. We're talking about companies we're looking at the balance sheets, and these have rock solid balance sheets. That's just simple interest. That's not talking about it compounding.
Yeah.
If you're not spending those, it gets to compound. Yeah. So we're typically, when we're talking about those, just using the simple numbers because we don't want to explode people's brains with them thinking about what it could do with the compounding. But that's the idea, and that is such a cool thing. As you can see, we both like when you are able to do when you're able to compound those returns, stacking returns, right? That's another way of saying it, stacking your returns on top of your returns.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is great. So what we're talking about, how do you recession proof your RMD by investing in bond and bond-like instruments? Why? Because they pay dividends and interest, and they're dependable, that you can depend, some are guarantees, some are guarantees, some are promises, but they're not hope. And hope is not a retirement plan. So that is a key to be able to help you understand and be able to help you prepare and recession-proof your RMDs. So we anticipate and expect that you've gotten a lot out of today's show.
Oh, we there's one more thing.
All right, hit it.
We've been talking about we've been talking about IRAs, 401ks, 457s. We've been talking about these kinds of things.
Right.
Typically, your 401k or your 403b, your 457 has two options. It has a stock-like investment, or it has a fixed account. And neither of those are going to produce that type of income. And so that's why we see a lot of people far before their retirement age, right?
Yeah.
Or not retirement age, RMD, required minimum distribution age, roll those into a individual retirement account that they have control over instead of the retirement plan having control over.
Right.
And that allows them to invest in these kinds of things that can produce enough income to protect them and allow them to have that recession-proof income generated required minimum distribution. Exactly. That's one thing to keep in mind, because it's a lot harder to do that inside of the rules that a traditional 401k plan, 457, 403b will allow.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why people roll their money over from a 401k, 403b, 457 into IRAs, is to be able to give them the world of opportunities of investment, to be able to allow them to recession-proof their RMDs. Good point, Daniel. Point that we should have said earlier in the program, but nevertheless, better late than never, right? Well, you've been listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy. Today's topic has been recession-proof your RMD. Today's book that we're giving away is Common Sense Income Strategies for free. And we would love, with no obligation, love to put this in your hand to the next 5 callers at 800-725-7616, 800-725-7616 for your free copy. And we are looking forward to you having a stress-free retirement. So if you want your retirement to be stress-free, invest for the I, not the G.